Chapter 1. Zhang Duuluo Continent, Star Luo Empire, Sea Abyss City. Gentle sunlight spilled across the lawn of the city lord's mansion, covering the green grass in a veil of gold. Kneeling on the lawn was a girl of about 14 or 15. Her black hair fell like a waterfall over her shoulders, gleaming in the sun. A simple, pale purple dress traced the lines of her lithe figure. Her slender legs were sheathed in thin black silk, elegant and immaculate. Resting on those knees was a white-haired, red-eyed little boy, Lu Jingming, 6 years old, his head pillowed in blissful contentment. The girl's fair, slender fingers pressed and massaged his forehead and temples with a practiced, rhythmic motion. Each movement was confident and effortless, the result of long hours of practice devoted to easing the boy's fatigue. Lu Jingming rolled over on her lap, inhaling a soft, natural scent. She never wore perfume. That gentle fragrance was simply her. He felt, with a child's quiet amazement, how quickly girls grew up. When he first met her, she had been a frightened little girl who just lost her family. 6 years had passed, and she had changed in every way. The girl's cheeks flushed, like peach blossoms in bloom, at his intimate closeness. She closed her knees instinctively, but there was no hint of discomfort in her eyes. Her gaze on Lu Jingming was full of indulgence, as if he were the most precious thing in the world. "Xiao Ming, today's your spirit awakening. If you're late, Miraflow will punish you," she reminded him, straightening his snow-white hair with a soft, concerned voice. At those words, Lu Jingming froze as if struck. Memories of past punishments flashed before his mind. Miraflow's strict discipline, the relentless drills and uncompromising demands. Miraflow was an excellent teacher, exacting and thorough, and sometimes harsh, especially with him. He had been made to practice sword work since he was 3. Back then, the little boy had balked at the tedious, grueling training, even throwing tantrums to try to sway the cold swordswoman. But Miraflow had not relented. Even this proud disciple, Zhang Lexuan, had never dared to plead on his behalf. All she could do was learn massage techniques to help soothe his aching body after training. That was why she had spent so much time practicing. "Sister Lexuan, why didn't you tell me earlier? It's over. It's over. I stood the teacher up. I'll be punished for sure," Lu Jingming cried, scrambling up from her lap. Before she could finish, he sprang away like a shot and dashed toward the awakening hall, the urgency of a child who feared Miraflow's wrath carrying him like wind. Zhang Lexuan covered her mouth and laughed softly as she watched him go. Then, as if remembering something heavier, her expression dimmed. She murmured, "It's been 6 years. 6 years." The words stirred a shadow in her eyes. Once she had a happy family. Then a spirit beast invasion came. Her father, the backbone of the family, died on the battlefield fighting the beast. With their head gone and no spirit saint left to protect them, enemies descended on the Zhang household and slaughtered everyone. Zhang Lexuan had survived only because she had been hiding while playing hide-and-seek with her mother. She had meant to flee and grow strong and one day return for revenge, but fate intervened. The very murderers who had butchered her family were cut down by an ice-armed sword immortal who appeared like winter and left as quickly. That swordswoman had been holding a newborn baby. Thinking of that infant, Zhang Lexuan's face softened. The baby had been Lu Jingming, the son of her late father's brother, and the betrothed promised to her family. At the time, everything in her was rage and grief, but she could not bring herself to abandon the child. He had been so small and helpless. Over the years, her initial resolve to train for revenge had changed. She had learned to care for him, and the closeness between them had grown into a quiet, fierce protectiveness. Lu Jingming ran at top speed, the wind tearing at his white hair. Along the way, servants and guards bowed as he passed, addressing him with the formal respect of the mansion staff. "City Lord." It seemed strange to see such deference toward a 6-year-old, but the circumstances of that year had thrust the title upon him. 6 years earlier, Lu Jingming had transmigrated into this world, a sudden arrival and then a series of tragic losses. His father in this world had fallen in the war against the spirit beasts, and his mother had died not long after, barely glancing at her newborn before leaving in despair. The newborn had become an orphan almost as soon as he had been born. Those abrupt, relentless changes had shocked the young transmigrant. He had only just arrived on Douluo Continent, hardly had time to acquaint himself with it, when his adoptive parents, one by one, were taken from him. Standing amid the bustle of the city lord's mansion and the watchful eyes of his guardians, the child sometimes wondered, privately and helplessly, whether fate had singled him out for nothing but sorrow. Chapter 2. Yaemiko. Just as Lu Jingming was beginning to doubt his luck, things got worse. After the city lord, his father, had fallen in battle, several noble families who had long held grudges against the Lu clan moved to seize the credit for defending Haiyuan City from the Sea Soul Beast invasion. Greedy for power and the city lord's seat, they allied and attacked the Lu family and their allies, the Zhang family. The mansion's defenses had been severely weakened by the recent battles, and the Zhang family's elites had taken heavy losses. The city lord's mansion was on the verge of being breached. Only then did Lu Jingming fully understand the scale of the crisis. His start had been catastrophic, but he did have one trump card. In his previous life, he had serendipitously obtained a true authority, and it was this true authority that had granted him a second chance at life. Although the circumstances of his reincarnation were terrible, losing his father soon after being reborn and facing near annihilation, he did not panic. Instead, he poured the last of his true power into one decisive act. He tore the veil between illusion and reality and brought someone from his former life's game into the real world. Amid a dazzling light, a silver-haired swordswoman appeared, an ice blade singing at her side. She barely paused, as if she understood everything without explanation. Calmly, she lifted the infant Lu Jingming and walked out of the mansion. Her figure blurred with the cold gleam of her sword. Every sweep released a sliver of frigid sword chi, and the spirit masters who had stormed the mansion fell like grain before a scythe. Even the Spirit Saint clan chief of one of the leading noble houses could not withstand a casual swing. In the end, the ambitious families that had tried to usurp power were utterly annihilated and vanished from Haiyuan City's history. As Lu Jingming passed the mansion kitchen, a pink blur burst out like a flash. With a gusting hop, it launched itself at him, and in a few nimble moves, clambered up onto his head and sat there as if it owned the place. He froze, then reached up and plucked the audacious little creature down. In his hands squirmed a soft, palm-sized, pink-furred fox, so unbearably cute it was almost indecent. Lu Jingming pretended to scold it. "Yaemiko, how many times have I told you not to cause trouble on my head? Did you go into the kitchen to steal fried tofu again?" He only needed to look closely to be sure. A smear of oil clung to the corner of the fox's mouth. Of course, this mischievous pet must have raided the kitchen again. As the little city lord's pet, the chefs never dared offend it. Whenever it swaggered in, they bowed and offered it its favorite, fried tofu. "Yingying," the fox chirped, batting a tiny paw and lifting its fluffy head to look at him with pleading eyes. It clearly wanted him to wipe the oil from its mouth. Lu Jingming rolled his eyes inwardly. "Am I the master, or is this creature?" he thought. Everything felt upside down, but the little fox's antics had the good effect of calming him. Panic ebbed, and he suddenly remembered there was still at least half an hour before the spirit awakening. The awakening hall was inside the city lord's mansion. At his pace, it would take only a few minutes to reach. He realized Zhang Lexuan had been trying to spook him earlier, and that he had only panicked because he feared Jing Liu's reprimand. With his nerves steadied, he drew an exquisite handkerchief from his robe and gently wiped the oil from the fox's mouth. He cradled the warm, fluffy creature to his chest and took 2 deep sniffs. It was the perfect hand warmer, soft, warm, and impossibly comforting. Still, the idea of this fox growing up into the scheming, scoundrel-like personality he remembered made his head throb. He had meant to use the true power to summon a graceful, elegant, pink-haired priestess to help manage the sprawling city lord's mansion. But although the materialization had succeeded, his remaining true power had been insufficient. The intended priestess didn't manifest as an adult. Instead, she took the form of the tiny pink-furred fox in his arms, and her intelligence regressed to infancy. He had no idea when, or if, she would regain her proper form as the crafty Lady Guji he remembered. This small, mischievous fox had a familiar prototype. She came from a popular mobile game from his previous life, Genshin Impact. Lu Jingming smiled despite himself as he thought of the Grand Narukami Shrine's Guji, Yaimiko. Cradling the fox, Lu Jingming walked into the awakening room with slow, unhurried steps. Runes glimmered across the walls, and a faint, pleasant fragrance drifted in and settled at the tip of his nose, clearing his head. His eyes sought the source and alighted on several ancient stone pillars standing within the chamber. Do not be fooled by their plain appearance. Each pillar was worth a fortune. They were carved from a rare ore known as spirit-calming stone, and even a single pillar could fetch thousands of gold. Chapter 3, Mirror Flow. Chapter 3, Jingliu. The ore known as Divine Stone was exceedingly rare and carried an almost miraculous property. It constantly gave off a unique fragrance. That scent seemed to have a power of its own. Being near it calmed the mind, soothed the spirit, and could dispel inner unrest. At the pivotal moment of spirit awakening, the Divine Stone's fragrance was indispensable. It smoothed the awakening process and greatly reduced the chance of unexpected complications. After all, spirit awakening was a life-defining moment for every spirit master. There could be no mistakes. For that reason, an awakening room lined with divine stone pillars was a precious, coveted thing throughout Haiwan City and beyond. Inside the quiet room, several people stood in silence. Zhang Lexuan had arrived before him and smiled at Lu Jingming, her bright eyes blinking playfully. She looked lively and full of charm. The Zhang Lexuan before him was all girlish vivacity and innocence, completely different from the serious, reserved senior sister of Shrek Academy's inner court that he remembered. When he thought about it, the change made sense. Since Lu Jingming had arrived in this world, Zhang Lexuan's fate had been overturned. In the original timeline, Zhang Lexuan had borne family blood feuds, wandered alone, suffered countless hardships, and was eventually taken in by dragon god Douluo Muen and brought to Shrek Academy. For the sake of revenge, she even made a pact with Muen, entrusting her future to Bebe. But now, while she had still felt the pain of loss, Lu Jingming's arrival had altered everything. Under Jingliu's incisive sword chi, her enemies were reduced to ashes, and the shackles of hatred began to fall away. Lu Jingming had not expected the only surviving branch of the Zhang family, long allied with his Lu family, to be Zhang Lexuan, the very senior sister he'd remembered. From old retainers at the city lord's mansion, Lu Jingming learned that the Zhang ancestors had come from the Sun-Moon Empire and been taken in by a Lu family head across the sea. The two families had been close ever since. Zhang Lexuan's father and Lu Jingming's father were sworn brothers, and the families had once arranged a childhood engagement. Though Lu Jingming was 9 years younger, spirit masters lived longer lives, and to both families the age gap was insignificant. Zhang Lexuan had been obedient and lovable since childhood. After her awakening, she even showed innate full spirit power, and Lu Jingming's parents had long approved of her as a future daughter-in-law. Lu Jingming had originally only intended to put down the rebellion in Haiwan City, but fate had led him to save his fiancée. Remembering the past and considering the family's long ties, he had no hesitation in bringing her into the city lord's mansion, caring for her, and arranging for her to become a disciple of Jing Liu. Different life experiences had shaped the girl he now saw. She was only 15, at least 8 years younger than the Zhang Lexuan he remembered, caught in the innocent, radiant years of youth. Standing beside Zhang Lexuan was the first game character Lu Jingming had summoned after arriving in this world, Jing Liu. This peerless sword immortal, who had once turned the tide and quelled the Haiwan City unrest, came from the mobile game Honkai Star Rail. She had been the former sword master of Luofu, one of the Cloud Knight's 5 elders, known by the title Unfettered Flight. Jing Liu's silver hair fell like a waterfall, loosely tied with a slender azure ribbon and cascading down her back with an air of freedom. A black eye patch embroidered with a silver moon covered one eye, lending her an aura of mystery, and crystal teardrop ornaments hung from her right ear, at her chest, and along her back, glinting with cool light whenever she moved. She wore light armor in ice blue and silver that hugged her form, outlining a tall, graceful figure. The armor enhanced her heroic bearing and gave her the chill, distant presence of a high moon in the night sky, aloof, formidable, and awe-inspiring. Though the eye patch hid one eye, Jing Liu fixed her gaze on Lu Jingming, the moment he entered the awakening room, as if nothing could obscure her sight. Lu Jingming returned her look with a sheepish smile. For some reason, even when he wasn't late, facing Jingliu always made a familiar flush of guilt rise in him. Perhaps it was because Jingliu had been strict with him since he was 3, driving him to practice the sword. Over time, that stern discipline had transformed his initial fondness for the slight, paper-thin woman into an anxious reverence, not unlike the one he once felt toward a stern homeroom teacher. At that instant, the pink-furred fox cradled in his arms pushed off with its hind legs, burst free, and darted like a flash at another woman in the awakening room. Her long hair shifted from soft pink at the roots to pure white at the tips, tied into a long ponytail. The flame-colored ends resembled the tail feathers of a phoenix, swaying lazily as she moved. Golden 3-ring ornaments sat on either side of her hair, catching the light. Her golden eyes contained peculiar black rings around the pupils, as if holding hidden stories that drew observers in. Her outfit blended black, white, and red for a striking effect, a plain white, off-the-shoulder dress that clung to her figure and showed graceful curves, a black cloak that lent mystery and elegance, and a vermilion shawl that added a flash of passion. The ensemble balanced coquettishness with dignity, making her an alluring mix of youthful charm and matured poise. Under Lu Jingming's somewhat envious gaze, the little fox cheerfully dove into the generous, inviting expanse of her cleavage. Chapter 4, Long Separation. Changli, you're here too. It's just a spirit awakening. There's really no need for such a big fuss. You're usually so busy with your duties, you've already done more than enough, Lu Jingming said, a little embarrassed. In name, he was the city lord, but in practice, the woman standing before him ran Sea Abyss City. She was a character he had summoned with the power of reality from the mobile game Wuthering Waves. A Huanglong consultant in Jinzhou, clever, resourceful, and an unsurpassed strategist. He thought back to the first time he'd used reality. 6 years ago, he'd summoned Jingliu, whose astonishing strength had crushed a rebellion and steadied the city. At that moment, Sea Abyss City had been reeling, its defenses hollowed by a savage invasion of sea spirit beasts, origin key badly damaged, and then compounded by the uprisings of several noble families. Jingliu's power had stamped out the chaos, but the city remained fragile and unruly. There was no real choice but to rule by force to maintain order. A couple years later, when Lu Jingming had gathered enough reality again, he decided he needed someone who could bring the city back from the brink more subtly. He could have summoned many characters, some even stronger, but he surrendered to his own tastes. Changli's proud bearing and striking presence, above all, had been impossible to resist. After Changli appeared, Lu Jingming planned a division of labor, one to handle the city's external affairs, the other to manage the city lord's mansion. He had meant to summon Yaemiko as the house steward. Clever and crafty, she seemed the perfect choice, but he had misjudged the amount of reality required. When the summoning light faded, the elegant figure who should have stood before him had already shifted into a small pink fox. With no other options, he had to entrust the management of the mansion and nearly all the city's daily affairs to Changli. At first, he worried. Both roles demanded far more than any single person ought to shoulder. Yet Changli proved astonishingly capable. She possessed natural leadership and administrative skill. Where chaos once reigned, she brought calm and order. The families who had been pushing their luck were quickly put in their place by her diplomacy backed by Jingliu's military threat. Even amid endless tasks, Changli still found time to refine the running of the city lord's mansion. Between her meticulous planning and Jingliu's deterrent force, Lu Jingming managed to keep his position. That was no small thing. According to the strict rules of the Douluo Empire, the underage Lu Jingming had little right to inherit the title of Count of Sea Abyss, let alone the office of City Lord. Sea Abyss was a major coastal city with many eyes on it, and the Lu family's only blood heir was him. Before he reached majority, the empire might well have appointed a temporary city lord, and no one could be sure that an interim ruler would willingly hand the city back. It could have become an intractable political mess. Changli, however, was far-sighted. When imperial envoys and would-be administrators pushed in, she boldly offered to assume the duties of city lord herself, refusing any outside interference. Then, using savvy negotiation and Jingliu's unquestionable strength as leverage, she maneuvered to keep Lu Jingming in his post. Had he relied on Jingliu alone, things would have been much harder. They could have tried to crush every challenger by force, openly defying the empire, a dangerous, likely disastrous path, or they might have had to give up Sea Abyss and flee to some quieter province. Even Jingliu, powerful as she was, had lost some of the terrors of her original world. She no longer had the path power or imaginary energy that once cleaved stars. On this unfamiliar Douluo Continent, she could only wield its spirit power. That left her formidable, but not invincible, against the massive machinery of the empire. Lu Jingming listened to his own reassurances, and watching Changli now, felt relief. Her lips curved into a soft, warm smile. Her voice came like a spring breeze. "It's fine," she said. "You don't need to worry. Since Miss Herta came aboard, the city's affairs have steadily improved. I've also cultivated a few trustworthy lieutenants to share the workload. With them handling the day-to-day, I have much more breathing room." Lu Jingming nodded, secretly glad he had not overburdened her. Chapter 5. Soul Awakening. The Black Tower Changli had mentioned was a figure Lu Jingming had spent several precious years summoning. He had painstakingly saved his true power bit by bit until he could finally manifest and call her into this world. Like Jingliu, Black Tower came from Honkai, Star Rail. She was the 83rd member of the Genius Club, an aeon of erudition and a universe-level genius. With Jingliu's and Changli's full support, Sea Abyss City had already recovered basic order from its earlier chaos. The occasional sea spirit beasts that came ashore to cause trouble were easily driven off. They couldn't get through a single exchange with Jingliu's overwhelming strength. But Lu Jingming knew restoring peace wasn't enough. To make Sea Abyss City truly prosper, he had to find new directions for development. Knowing this world was in the Tang sect era of the Douluo Continent, he focused his attention on spirit tools. In this special era, spirit tools had become a major force driving the world's advancement and had ushered in a golden age of rapid progress. That momentum had begun to threaten the once dominant, revered profession of spirit master. The neighboring Sun Moon Empire, backed by huge investment and research into spirit tool technology, was growing ever stronger. As a transmigrator, Lu Jingming understood that in a few years, the Sun Moon Empire, with its advanced spirit tool tech, would likely sweep the Douluo Continent. Only because a certain god king in the original world violated the rules and intervened in the lower realm did the Sun Moon Empire's rise get delayed. Otherwise, it might have unified Douluo Star long ago. Realizing all this, Lu Jingming appreciated how crucial spirit tools would be to Sea Abyss City's future. So he saved true power for years like a miser and finally managed to materialize Black Tower. Even after she arrived, Black Tower was far weaker than in her origin world. Lu Jingming didn't care. What he wanted from her wasn't combat strength, but her exceptional intellect and creative genius. In his plans, her wisdom and inventiveness were as vital, if not more so, than Jingliu or Changli. Though none of the summoned beings came in at full original power and had lost many world-specific abilities, they gained spirits and spirit abilities in this universe. That gain could be seen as limiting compared to their unbound former capabilities, but it also opened a cultivation path here. Given their genius, restoring and even surpassing their original power would be possible in time. Black Tower, a research-obsessed genius, was predictably hidden in her laboratory. Everything in this new world fascinated her. Even if she discarded a concept once she understood it, the byproducts of her explorations proved extremely useful to Sea Abyss City. In under a year, she had thoroughly studied spirit masters, spirit beasts, and spirit tools, living up to her title as a universe-level genius. If not for the enormous differences between universes, she might have outpaced every spirit tool master here in a month and pushed the technology to new heights. Lu Jingming even sold some of the spirit tools Black Tower had deemed defective. The items fetched over 100 million gold coins. What she called trash, the spirit tool masters of the Star Luo Empire treated as masterpieces, superior even to the exquisite works of the Mingde Hall in the Sun Moon Empire. Within a year, Miss Black Tower's name spread through the spirit tool circles of the Star Luo Empire. It was a pity that traditional spirit masters in the Luo Empire still distrusted spirit tools and their makers. Otherwise, her reputation would have dominated the whole land. Still, Lu Jingming preferred the low profile. Sea Abyss City was in its infancy. Steady, hidden progress suited its development better. To push the city forward, he spared no effort. He even volunteered to be Black Tower's experimental subject so she could study the true Tao authority, trading those experiments for practical daily spirit tools that improved the city's environment and technology. He could have forced her to research, but he refused. To him, these summoned companions were family, not instruments. Perhaps it was his sincere attitude that moved her. Black Tower threw herself into Sea Abyss City's development, easing much of the burden on Changli's managerial shoulders. The changes were still small after such a short time, but Lu Jingming was confident Sea Abyss City would soon be reborn into the most advanced city in the Luo Empire and might even rival Mingdu, the capital of the Sun-Moon Empire. Black Tower had been here less than a year and was already a rank 9 spirit tool master. The results she would achieve with more time promised to be staggering. Now Lu Jingming stood in the center of the awakening chamber, planted within the hexagram array. He was calm, eyes on Jingliu, and spoke with steady, powerful voice. "Teacher, I am ready." Chapter 6, Black Abyss, White Flower. Jingliu nodded faintly. An ice-forged longsword crystallized in her hand, and she slowly sheathed it into the 6-pointed star array. At the same time, a torrent of extreme ice spirit energy poured into the formation. As the array flared with a blinding white light, Lu Jingming suddenly felt a warm current flood through his body. Along with it, a swirl of black and white light within him followed that warmth and began to merge into his flesh and bloodline. He could feel something deep inside him being ruthlessly consumed by that light, and then replaced. He did not panic. This was exactly what he had intended. That black and white radiance was the origin of the 6th divine key from the game Honkai Impact 3rd, the key of creation, Black Abyss White Flower, which he had materialized by expending a great deal of true power. According to Herta's research, spirits in this world take countless forms, each unique, but they are always hidden in and passed down through a person's bloodline. With Herta's help, Lu Jingming had implanted the origin of Black Abyss White Flower into his own lineage. Then, at the moment of spirit awakening, Black Abyss White Flower would devour the spirit his bloodline was meant to inherit and replace the Lu family's legacy spirit, becoming his new, singular spirit. Spirit awakening was unpredictable. If he had awakened a useless spirit, he would be in trouble. He had never believed the old saying, "There are only useless spirit masters, never useless spirits." Talent and innate spirit power determined a spirit master's future from the start. Effort alone often wasn't enough. Countless people worked hard, but only a rare few with truly exceptional luck achieved greatness. The Lu family's legacy spirit had been, at best, an advanced spirit. Lu Jingming was not satisfied. If he could replace it with the power locked in Black Abyss White Flower, it would become an extraordinary divine rank spirit. Just as he'd hoped, the black and white light condensed and took form in his hands. A warmth like spring sunlight spread through him, and powerful spirit fluctuations rippled outward, stirring the air. Jingliu and Chongli both smiled with relief. With their strength, they could tell at a glance that Lu Jingming's innate spirit power had reached innate full level. No detection device needed. Zhang Lexuan, standing nearby, looked at him with pleasant surprise. She didn't care much about his talent, but exceptional potential was always something to be pleased about. The white glow of the 6-pointed array gradually faded, and the spirit awakening ceremony reached its completion. Lu Jingming found himself holding 2 spears, one black, one white. The spear in his left hand was immaculate white, its shaft smooth and shining with a metallic luster that radiated a sacred, creative aura. White flower, the symbol of life and creation. The spear in his right hand was abyssal black, a depth that seemed to consume light itself, exuding a mysterious, destructive power. Black abyss, the force of decay and dissolution. Is this twin spirits? Zhang Lexuan blinked in surprise, her lips parting as awe lit her eyes. That's right, twin spirits. Lu Jingming gripped the 2 spears tightly, unable to hide his delight. He had only planned to replace the Lu family's unimpressive legacy spirit. He had not expected Black Abyss White Flower to manifest as twin spirits when integrated into his bloodline. It was an enormous and welcome surprise. Twin spirits were less rare than during the limitless Douluo era 10,000 years ago, but they still carried undeniable advantages. A twin spirit could acquire many more spirit rings than an ordinary spirit master. The spirit power feedback from those rings could raise a cultivator's spirit power rank significantly, saving years of cultivation. Especially when a spirit master broke through to the titled Douluo level, attachments to the secondary spirit could accelerate advancement and help reach the realm of a super Douluo much faster. Congratulations, Xiaoming, twin spirits! And with innate full spirit power, your talent is far better than mine. Zhang Lexuan's cheeks flushed as pride and joy shone in her face. She had long accepted Lu Jingming, but what woman wouldn't want a partner with extraordinary strength? Changli, cradling a pink, fluffy fox, drifted over to Jingliu with a teasing smile. So, you're disappointed your disciple's spirit isn't a sword? Jingliu shook her head lightly and reached out to stroke the little fox's head. Even someone as cool and aloof as she was couldn't help but soften at the creature's charm. It doesn't matter. A weapon is only an aid. No matter what he uses, it won't stop him from learning swordsmanship. In the laboratory, the instruments hummed softly and odd-shaped devices flickered with faint light. Herta stared intently at the soul guidance crystal floating before her, barely blinking. She knew who had arrived before turning. Only Lu Jingming could have the access and cause to enter at this time. Did you ever think my awakening might fail? Lu Jingming asked the brown-haired girl seated with composed elegance. Fail? Herta finally turned, wearing a pointed witch's hat tilted at a rakish angle. Her face was delicately beautiful, like a sculpted work, part innocent girl, part rational scientist, and now carried that characteristic cool detachment. She wore a gown of interwoven purple and black studded with shimmering star patterns that gave her a futuristic, noble look. Black stockings and leather boots lengthened her graceful legs. How could it fail when this genius was personally involved? She said it with a hint of mock pride, as if her presence guaranteed success. Yes, Miss Herta, peerless in the world. Miss Herta, brilliant beyond measure. Miss Herta, so beautiful she makes fish sink and geese fall from the sky. Lu Jingming threw up his hands in mock surrender and rattled off a string of extravagant compliments. Miss Herta nodded, clearly pleased, a triumphant smile curving her lips. You flatter well, she said. Praise me more. With my wisdom and beauty, there's no such thing as too much. If you could add a little feeling to it, that would be perfect. Lu Jingming's mouth twitched. He should have known better. A few compliments would never embarrass Miss Herta. In her mind, no words could ever fully capture her superiority. He walked over to the soul guidance crystal floating nearby and said, half joking, half serious, "You're still researching your simulated universe. Don't forget, we're not in a place with unlimited resources. You can't just squander them. There are no colleagues here who share your ambitions, and there aren't rich women dropping pocket change to buy a star destroyer to fund your work." Miss Herta tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and replied calmly, I know that. Even if my intellect is the finest in the universe, without resources, everything is rootless duckweed. But a true powerhouse shouldn't be limited by their surroundings. Fine, Lu Jingming said. Then I'll be looking forward to your results. I won't disturb you. I mainly came to thank you. Your wisdom and beauty really were indispensable. Without you, I wouldn't have manifested such a powerful spirit out of thin air. He shrugged. He understood Miss Herta. She only focused on what interested her, and only invested herself in people and things she cared about. Right now, the person she cared most about was, unsurprisingly, Lu Jingming. His unique authority to make illusion become reality was endlessly fascinating to her. As Lu Jingming's silhouette retreated, Miss Herta's eyes grew distant, as if musing. I think I'm beginning to understand why nothingness came into being and what the truth that joy glimpsed truly is, she murmured. Shaking her head to clear the complicated thoughts, she looked back at the soul guidance crystal. Inside it, strings of mysterious numbers braided, split, and reformed with unpredictable life, weaving an entirely new world of infinite possibilities. In a modern-style bedroom, the soft glow of a soul guidance lamp fell over Lu Jingming, who sat cross-legged. He opened his eyes slowly, ending his session of cultivation. He shook his head, a trace of helplessness on his face. Without his first spirit ring, his spirit power rank was capped, and a breakthrough was impossible. That was one of the foundational rules of the Douluo Continent. Despite the cultivation, his spirit power had only increased slowly. The efficiency of absorbing and refining spirit power differs dramatically before and after a breakthrough. At the same talent level, a higher rank yields far better absorption efficiency. Even with the top-tier meditation technique developed by Jing Liu, progress remained limited. Jing Liu had centuries of experience. Soon after encountering Spirit Master cultivation methods, she drew on her deep foundation and upgraded the advanced meditation technique inherited from the Lu family. Through careful refinement, she created a wholly new, top-tier cultivation technique for the Douluo Continent. Cultivation methods on the continent are comparatively uniform. Most people rely on meditation to raise mental force and spirit power, and few techniques offer other effects. That is why certain God King skills have survived unchanged for tens of thousands of years. Jing Liu's tailored meditation blended Xianzhou-style practices with traditional Douluo techniques. It not only boosted mental force and spirit power, but uniquely tempered the body and increased physical strength. A crucial advantage for spirit masters, since the age of spirit ring a master can withstand often depends on their physical quality. Lu Jingming had given the technique a resonant name, from novice to standing above the heavens. 3 days had passed since Lu Jingming awakened his twin spirits, Black Abyss and White Flower. He hadn't rushed out to hunt for his first spirit ring. Instead, he spent the time calming himself and fully familiarizing himself with the spirit power surging through him and with his new spirits. Before awakening, mortals on the Douluo Continent can't freely control the spirit power inside them. Lu Jingming was no exception. In his previous life, he had been an ordinary civilian. Though he'd learned some basic sword techniques from Jing Liu in this life, this transcendent energy still felt alien. Those 3 precious days were for learning to sense and master every bit of his current power and preparing fully for the hunt for his first spirit ring. St. Freya Academy had been established in Haiyuan City within the last 2 years, funded by the city lord's mansion and located in the city's east district on lands specially allocated by Changli. After the school was built, Jing Liu, Haiyuan City's strongest figure, became dean of the spirit department, while Miss Herta, newly arrived in this world, took charge of the soul guidance department. Over 2 years, the academy had enrolled a small cohort, but most were ordinary villagers. Changli had recruited. Students from spirit master families or noble backgrounds were rare. St. Freya was still new and had little reputation, so it struggled to attract prominent pupils. Fewer than 100 students were enrolled. They joined largely out of gratitude. The city lord's mansion had helped awaken their spirits for free and promised assistance in obtaining spirit rings. In truth, the faculty was thin. Only a handful could be called true teachers. The academy itself was Changli's idea. After studying the situation on the Douluo Continent, he had begun planning carefully to build a loyal, dependable team for Lu Jingming. Training commoners into spirit masters not only ensured their gratitude and loyalty, it was one of the few realistic ways to assemble a capable team under current conditions. Chapter 8. St. Freya Academy. The founding of St. Freya Academy renewed the hopes of commoners who could never have afforded spirit awakening. In the era of limitless Douluo, anyone who wanted to awaken a spirit had to pay. Setting up the awakening formation and hiring the spirit master to conduct it both cost money. 10,000 years ago, Spirit Hall had once helped commoners awaken for free, recruiting most of the commoner spirit masters on the Douluo Continent. At one point, Spirit Hall's roster of spirit masters even surpassed the combined totals of the Heaven Dew Empire and the Star Luo Empire. But after 10,000 years, although the total number of spirit masters and the powers of the major empires had greatly expanded, the path for ordinary people to rise became narrower. For many impoverished families, the fee for a single awakening could bankrupt them. Take Shrek Academy, now hailed as the continent's premier school. Its admission standards are brutal. students must not only show exceptional talent, but also secure recommendation letters from city lords of the major imperial cities to qualify. For commoners, simply awakening their spirit is hard enough. Getting close to a city lord and earning a recommendation is nearly impossible. Even if a commoner prodigy appears, city lords often prefer to recruit such talents for their own use rather than endorse them to Shrek Academy. After all, a city lord with any competence can control a talented commoner and keep them in service. As a result, most students who attend Shrek Academy come with some backing. True, unconnected commoner students are rare. Those who flock to Shrek Academy do so for two main reasons. First is the Academy's fame. After 10,000 years of history, its prestige in the Spirit Master world is unmatched, and its teaching and results make it a holy place in many eyes. Second is networking. Shrek's outer court students are elites, either wealthy or from powerful families, and the Academy naturally forms a high-end social circle. For many aristocratic families, sending a child to Shrek isn't so much about learning what their scions don't already know. Spirit affinity is hereditary, and noble families have spent centuries, sometimes millennia, studying their own spirits and developing complete cultivation systems. For them, Shrek Academy is a place to make connections, find like-minded allies, and secure opportunities for the future. Of course, making the inner court and becoming a core member is even more valuable. Ties to Shrek bring benefits to the families behind the students, since the Academy holds substantial legacy and numerous titled Douluo. But how many students can actually reach the inner court? For these reasons, Lu Jingming never intended to send Zhang Lexuan to Shrek Academy. He saw no need. He didn't have to cultivate those kinds of connections. Zhang Lexuan already had Jing Liu, a supremely powerful expert, guiding her. Jing Liu's strength and experience far outmatched the ordinary spirit emperors and spirit saints at Shrek. Lu Jingming himself had no desire to study elsewhere either. Jing Liu, Changli, and the Black Tower were more than capable as mentors. And in terms of networking, with the Black Tower and others around, influential people would sooner or later come to him to form ties. He wouldn't need to court them. Lu Jingming's view was shaped by Spirit Hall's history. The commoner population contained enormous untapped potential. In any vast base of ordinary people, exceptional geniuses would eventually emerge. If those talents could be found and nurtured, so long as they weren't ungrateful, his efforts would pay off. Thanks to spirit tools manufactured by the Black Tower, Lu Jingming was comfortably wealthy. Helping Haiyuan City's commoners awaken for free and hiring teachers to instruct them in Spirit Master basics was not difficult for him. Take Jing Liu, for example. Though she was busy with daily duties, she still found time to teach sword techniques to students at St. Freya Academy. Jing Liu was a true titled Douluo. Having her as an instructor was a privilege comparable to studying at Shrek. She said flatly that anyone who wanted to learn her sword techniques could have them, regardless of talent level. Consequently, most of St. Freya's students had taken lessons from her. That said, their talents were limited, both in spirit affinity and in sword aptitude, and none could compare to Zhang Lexuan. St. Freya Academy itself was striking. The campus favored white stone and glass curtain walls with visible metal frameworks, a modern, fashionable look more reminiscent of the Sun-Moon Empire across the sea than the traditional architecture of the Star Luo Empire. Though newly finished, its facilities were complete. The teaching buildings were spacious and bright, offering an excellent learning environment. Dormitories were warm and comfortable for restful sleep. The training grounds were well equipped for daily practice, and the simulated cultivation rooms were a standout. Top-tier facilities usually only found in high-rank academies. The cafeteria provided a rich variety of meals, and a picturesque scenic area gave students a place to relax amid their intense studies. St. Freya Academy was designed to give commoner students an opportunity, quality instruction, good facilities, and most importantly, a chance to be seen. Chapter 9. The Scumbag Fox. Lu Jingming had spared no expense building St. Freya Academy. He had invested hundreds of millions of gold coins, buying most of the construction materials through special channels from the Sun-Moon Empire. The simulated cultivation rooms alone had cost a fortune. The technical requirements were high and their value immeasurable. In terms of environment and facilities, St. Freya Academy could stand shoulder to shoulder with any renowned institution. It was a bright, sunny day when Lu Jingming strolled through the campus, the pink little fox curled in his arms. Passing the clear lake, he scattered a few handfuls of food across the surface. The domesticated golden carp surged and scrabbled happily, sending ripples across the water. He continued on to the lakeside pavilion, where he found Jinglu perched on the railing, gazing quietly at the shimmering water with a distant look in his eyes. At the stone table in the pavilion, Changli and Zhang Lexuan were playing chess. Zhang Lexuan's brow was deeply furrowed. She looked to be in a difficult position. That was hardly surprising. Changli had taught her, and Changli was a serious student of the game with considerable skill. Lu Jingming walked over and, after a quick glance at the board, immediately understood that Zhang Lexuan had been driven into a corner. A comeback was unlikely. Zhang Lexuan sighed and set down her piece. "As expected of Sister Changli," she murmured, "compared to you, I still have a long way to go." Changli smiled gently. "Your chess isn't weak. I've simply studied it longer and see more of the board. Compared to some people, you're already very good." She shot Lu Jingming a meaningful glance as she spoke. Lu Jingming felt his face heat and awkwardly looked away. Changli had once tried to teach him chess, but his mind had been elsewhere. He'd only learned the basic rules. His skill level was laughable. Zhang Lexuan covered her mouth to hide a chuckle. She knew exactly who Changli meant by some people. Jinglu, who had quietly come to stand beside Lu Jingming, said flatly, "It seems you're ready. Let's go." Zhang Lexuan hurriedly added, "Xiao Ming, choosing your first spirit ring is crucial. Be careful and stay safe out there." She didn't really worry about his safety. The presence of Jinglu beside him was reassurance enough. But old habits of concern died hard. Changli waved with a warm smile. "Go early and come back early," she said. She trusted Jinglu's strength implicitly. The powerful, protective aura he gave off made everyone feel secure. The little fox seemed to sense Lu Jingming was about to leave. It wriggled free, leapt from his arms, and landed in Zhang Lexuan's embrace with an indignant little noise. It refused to go with him. There was no delicious fried tofu waiting outside, and it certainly wasn't eager to leave its comfort zone. Lu Jingming watched it go and couldn't help a twitch of exasperation. "As expected of you," he muttered under his breath. "Divine child, truly scummy to the core. You only care about who feeds you." Normally, obtaining a first spirit ring wasn't difficult. Common practice was to find a spirit beast in a small spirit beast forest whose attribute matched yours and hunt it. But Lu Jingming's plan was different. He intended to take a first spirit ring from a 1,000-year spirit beast. 1,000-year spirit beasts were rare in ordinary spirit beast forests, and finding one that perfectly matched his attribute would be even harder. Large spirit beast gatherings were few and far between. Sea Abyss City was one of the more promising places to search. It was a coastal city on the western edge of the Star Luo Empire. To its north lay the border with the Heaven Soul Empire and the Heaven Soul border city, Maple Leaf Prefecture. To the west lay a vast ocean, beyond which was the Sun Moon Empire. To the south rose the Mingdo Mountain Range, the border between the Sun Moon Empire and the Star Luo Empire. Rugged and treacherous like a sleeping giant dragon separating the two powers. For years, that range had been the front line where the two empires' border armies confronted each other, with small-scale skirmishes erupting constantly. Soldiers from both sides clashed there as if determined to knock sense into each other. To the east lay the heart of the Star Luo Empire. Star Luo City, the magnificent capital that carried 10,000 years of the empire's glory. From Sea Abyss City, one could travel east, past Star Luo City, and reach the vast Star Do Great Forest at the center of the Douluo Continent. That forest was immense, home to countless powerful and mysterious spirit beasts, and a coveted hunting ground for spirit masters seeking spirit rings. On paper, Sea Abyss City's location ought to have guaranteed prosperity. It had abundant marine resources and a unique position close to two great empires, perfect for trade and cultural exchange. But historical and political realities had stunted its development. Although no full-scale war had ever broken out between the Sun Moon Empire and the Star Luo Empire, the border had never been truly peaceful. Skirmishes in the Mingdo mountain range had never ceased, and the long-term standoff kept Sea Abyss City from establishing normal maritime trade with the Sun Moon Empire. Maple Leaf Prefecture faced the same constraints on its side. As a result, both cities had to scrape by on what the ocean could provide. Marine spirit beasts far outnumbered their land counterparts on the Douluo Continent. Most of them lived in groups rather than alone. When they appeared, they came in great numbers and with overwhelming force. Every coastal city across the continent suffered frequent invasions from these sea creatures. The constant threat left residents exhausted, with little time or resources left for developing maritime industries. 6 years ago, Sea Abyss City had been a place mired in hardship. It was not highly regarded among the cities of the Star Luo Empire. Marine spirit beast raids had plagued it for years, and the city lacked powerful sects or influential families to provide serious protection. Its overall strength was weak, and progress had been slow as a result. Chapter 10. Conspiracy Theories. Because of Sea Abyss City's location, Lu Jingming's options for hunting spirit beasts were limited: the ocean or the Mingdo mountain range. Sea spirit beasts weren't suitable for him. Most had water or ice attributes that clashed with the nature of his twin spirits, Black Abyss and White Flower. The Mingdo range would have been ideal. It was close and rich in spirit beasts. But the border between the Star Luo Empire and the Sun Moon Empire had recently grown tense. Small-scale clashes had broken out, and Duke Baihu, Dai Hao, led elite troops to take a border city on the Sun Moon side. Fighting raged around Mingdo, making it a bad time to hunt. When Lu Jingming learned this, he was surprised at how weak the Sun Moon Empire seemed to be. Even more puzzling was that they hadn't deployed their powerful spirit tools. After Chongli's analysis, the reason became clear. The current ruler of the Sun Moon Empire was from the conservative faction, the same family tied to He Keito in the original story, and at this point, He Keito was still Crown Prince Shuhei. Under that conservative rule, many advanced spirit tools were explicitly forbidden for use in warfare. Meanwhile, Duke Baihu's personal White Tiger army was fearsomely capable. Apart from the 10 Spirit Master legions, the White Tiger army was among the Star Luo Empire's most formidable forces. With the Sun Moon military hamstrung by policy, Duke Baihu could exploit that weakness and seize a border city. Lu Jingming didn't argue with the ruler's choices. He only noted that this restriction might explain why, a few years later in the original timeline, the Sun Moon Empire underwent major changes without huge upheaval. The empire still had deep roots. Its 5 great protector hands, the Royal Consecration Hall, and the Mingd Hall were forces not to be trifled with. Without their support, it would have been difficult for someone like Shu Tianran's father to seize power easily, even with outside collusion. In a world of extraordinary power, high-end combat strength could sway imperial succession. Without the tacit approval of powerful figures like the Silver Moon Douluo Continent, plots rarely succeeded. Despite having the peerless sword immortal Jing Liu as protection, Lu Jingming still preferred to avoid unnecessary risk. He resolved to go to the Star Do Great Forest to hunt for his first spirit ring, the safer course, and one that fit his principle of avoiding trouble when possible. He hadn't come from any academy and rejected the boastful idea that only cowards avoid trouble. To him, that was bullying the weak. When the real threat came, those braggers would still turn and cower. Now he and Jingliu flew swiftly at several thousand meters. The astral winds howled and struck the ice-blue spirit power shield around them, but it held. Lu Jingming lay in Jingliu's arms. He could smell a faint scent from Jingliu, but the sensation wasn't pleasant. The light armor made what should have been softness feel cold and hard. The Star Do Great Forest lay to the east of Sea Abyss City. To get there, one normally crossed Star Luo City. Since Jinglu could fly higher than the Star Luo Empire's anti-air defenses could detect, he took the direct route, cleaving through the sky at over 3,000 meters. As they passed Star Luo City, a strong aura within the city registered Jinglu's spirit fluctuations, but after a moment's judgment, it was ignored. Someone who could fly freely at that altitude was no ordinary spirit master, and there was no need to stir trouble for a passing figure. They continued past the Duke Baihu mansion. Lu Jingming looked down and thought of the world's protagonist, Huo Yuhao. As a noble of the Star Luo Empire, it wasn't hard to check public records about the duke's household so long as no classified information was involved. Lu Jingming hadn't found any mention of the name Dai Yuhao, but he did uncover Dai Yaoheng and Dai Huabin. Dai Yaoheng was 5 years older than Lu Jingming and had only just joined Shrek Academy. Dai Huabin was 2 years younger. That put Lu Jingming at the same age as Bei Bei and Shu Sanxi. Piecing together these household details helped him pin down the timeline. Huo Yuhao was still young, his spirit had not yet awakened, and his mother was still alive now. Still, Lu Jingming was convinced the God King in the God Realm had already taken an interest in Huo Yuhao, the son of luck who carried the Douluo Continent's luck. His certainty came from how events had played out later. When Huo Yuhao's mother eventually died, the God King immediately took her soul to the God Realm. That reaction suggested the God King had been watching the boy from a very early moment, perhaps from Huo Yuhao's birth, when the continent's luck subtly shifted. Lu Jingming had no intention of drawing the God King's gaze. That God King was not magnanimous, ruthless, vengeful, and unscrupulous, an assassin at heart. To a being like that, Lu Jingming was an unpredictable variable. The God King had long regarded the Douluo Continent as his own jurisdiction and would not tolerate someone outside his control. The outcomes were stark. Either he would be meticulously plotted against and erased, or he would be bound and trained into obedient servitude like Huo Yuhao. Until he had the strength and confidence to resist, Lu Jingming resolved to remain invisible to the God King's attention. Take Electrolux, the god of the necromancy holy law, for example. He was so powerful that even a wisp of his divine sense was untouchable by anyone on the entire Douluo Continent. And yet, inexplicably, when Huo Yuhao went to the Clear Sky sect, Electrolux sacrificed that divine sense and turned to ashes to save him. Lu Jingming suspected there was a powerful hand pulling strings behind it all. After Electrolux died, he left an eternal tower for Huo Yuhao, but even that was shattered by the God King in the Qiangkun Asking Love Valley. All the clues pointed the same way. The Douluo Continent had long been under the strict surveillance of that God King. In this era, it was unimaginably difficult to carve out a name for oneself. If it had been 10,000 years ago, Lu Jingming would have had little to fear. Back then, powers from the God realm rarely interfered with the lower realm's affairs. At most, a divine sense from a god position might be passed down, but it could not meddle excessively. 10,000 years later, however, everything changed. The God realm had been hit by a space-time storm and swept into a black hole, plunging it into crisis. The God King left behind preparations and a meticulously arranged 10,000-year plan, and in his position as an enforcement god, he could flout the God realm's rules and directly intervene in the lower realm's development. He could set rules to constrain other divinities while remaining free himself to violate them. If Lu Jingming had arrived in this era without real authority, he would likely have had no choice but to lie low. Talent no longer guaranteed ascension to divinity. God position legacies no longer appeared on the Douluo Continent, and even if someone managed to condense a God position through sheer strength, the God realm was already full. There were simply no vacancies for new divinities. The prospects were bleak. In this difficult age, the only ones with a real chance of becoming divinities were Tang Wutong, the God King's daughter, and Huo Yuhao, the so-called son of luck whom the God King had tamed. Bei Bei and Xiao Xiao, for example, they were destined to live out their days on the Douluo Continent until they grew old and died. Not because their talent was inferior, but because there was no place left in the God realm for them, and the God King would not permit Huo Yuhao to form his own team. Ever since he learned he had come to the Peerless Tang Sect era, Lu Jingming had dismissed the idea of becoming a divinity by inheriting a God position. He knew that even if he somehow inherited one and ascended, as a new divinity, he would still be forced to live in the God King's shadow. There were no true God King legacies to be claimed now. To break through in this world, one had to find another way, a new path entirely. Thinking that through, Lu Jingming shook his head and set aside those distant, complicated problems for the time being. They could be handled later. Right now, there were more immediate matters to attend to. They descended slowly through the clouds, and below spread a vast, boundless forest, the Stardew Great Forest, the continent's greatest gathering ground for spirit beasts. 10,000 years ago, the forest had been far larger. Over time, human expansion had greatly reduced its area. Shrek City, home to Shrek Academy, had once been part of the Stardew Great Forest, but now belonged to the Heaven Soul Empire in name, though in practice Shrek City retained a high degree of independence. The Stardew Great Forest was the largest spirit beast habitat on the Douluo Continent and was clearly divided into 4 zones based on danger and spirit beast distribution: the outer zone, the inner zone, the core zone, and the forbidden land at the center. The outer zone was the mildest. It was populated mainly by a large number of 100-year and some 1,000-year spirit beasts. Their strength was relatively low by the forest standards, making them common targets for lower-level spirit masters seeking low-year spirit rings. Deeper in lay the inner zone, where spirit beasts were significantly stronger. Alongside many powerful 1,000-year beasts, the inner zone was home to a great number of 10,000-year spirit beasts. Those 10,000-year creatures boasted formidable powers and unique abilities. Spirit masters who found a suitable beast here and gained its spirit rings could markedly boost their own strength. Still farther in was the core zone. 10,000-year beasts were abundant here, and the occasional trace of 100,000-year spirit beasts could be found. 100,000-year spirit beasts were top-tier existences, each comparable to a titled Douluo among humans. Their intelligence rivaled mankind's. Each one was a legend among spirit beasts. At the very center lay the Forbidden Land, an absolute no-go for humans. Several of the continent's 10 great vicious beasts had established bases there, including beast god Emperor Tian, who occupied the central position. Emperor Tian's strength was terrifying. Any human who dared approach the Forbidden Land would quickly face his ruthless, fatal strike. Lu Jingming knew an even more hidden secret. At the center of the Forbidden Land, within the alternate space of the Lake of Life, lay the slumbering half-body of a dragon god, the Silver Dragon King, once a being of God-King-level strength, now severely wounded. Though she slept, she was the co-lord of the spirit beasts. If the Stardew Great Forest ever suffered a catastrophe great enough to shake the spirit beast race's foundation, it would awaken the Silver Dragon Princess. Even in her injured state, her power could not be underestimated. A weakened God-King-level expert still stood far above the mortals of the Douluo Continent. Chapter 12. Phantasmal Spirit Fox. Unless a divinity personally descended to the lower realm, almost no one on the Douluo Continent could withstand a single blow from the Silver Dragon Princess. Of course, the Silver Dragon King did not meddle in worldly affairs at every turn. Most of the time, she hid from the gaze of the God Realm to preserve her concealment and safety. In the original timeline, she only awakened in the most critical moments, when the life of the beast god Emperor Tian was in mortal danger. If Huo Yuhao had insisted on killing Di Tian, what he would have faced was the Silver Dragon King herself. Yet only Di Tian could summon her aid. Even when the Imperial Auspicious Beast, the very heart of the Spirit Beast race, was schemed against, and the Stardew Great Forest's luck was stolen, an outrage of that scale still failed to draw the Silver Dragon King out easily. She might simply have been outclassed by that God King and dared not act rashly. All of this, however, was Lu Jingming's conjecture based on the faint memories in his head. The real truth might differ. With Jinglu, a superlative expert, watching his back, Lu Jingming felt bold. He deliberately bypassed the safer outer zones of the Stardew Great Forest and pushed into the more dangerous inner reaches. Sunlight filtered through gaps in the dense canopy and speckled the forest floor. It was Lu Jingming's first time in the heart of the Stardew Great Forest, and his eyes were full of wonder. Everything around him, from oddly shaped trunks to the occasional glimpse of a spirit beast, felt intoxicatingly new. Tall trees obscured the sky. Thick layers of fallen leaves softened the ground. Low roars and strange cries of distant spirit beasts wove together into a mysterious symphony. Jingli walked ahead without haste, senses alert, shielding Lu Jingming as they moved. A faint rustle rose from some bushes to their right. Lu Jingming tensed and fixed his gaze there. Jinglu, calm, raised a hand to signal him to stay still. A small, adorable spirit beast padded out, a compact fox covered in variegated fur, its eyes two bright, curious gems studying them. Lu Jingming's face lit up. This little creature's cuteness rivaled the pink-furred fox he kept at home. Not being well-versed in spirit beasts, and knowing this species didn't appear in the original story, he didn't recognize it. He looked at Jinglu. Jinglu, who beyond sword practice and teaching, loved reading about everything in the world, certainly knew what it was. She spoke softly. It's a phantasmal spirit fox. It has some illusion abilities, but this one isn't fully grown yet. It's no threat. The fox tilted its fluffy head and scrutinized them. After a moment, apparently deciding they meant no harm, it wagged its bushy tail and began to move off. A deafening roar exploded from farther in the forest like rolling thunder. The little fox shuddered until it froze, then, frightened, scrambled behind Lu Jingming and cowered there. A massive, tiger-shaped spirit beast charged into sight like a black storm wreathed in dark flames. Its blood-red eyes were fixed on the tiny fox with predatory hunger, as if it intended to devour it in the next breath. Jinglu's brow creased slightly. "That's a black flame demon tiger," she said quietly. "A 1,000-year spirit beast. Looks like it's been chasing this fox." Lu Jingming glanced at the trembling phantasmal spirit fox at his feet, then at the roaring black flame demon tiger. The tiger had both fire and dark attributes. As a 1,000-year spirit beast, it just met the threshold for a spirit ring he could absorb. He'd planned for his first spirit ring to come from something that matched his Black Abyss spirit. The Black Abyss's decomposition power leaned toward death and destruction, so the tiger's dark attribute could complement it. Lu Jingming wasn't worried about taking a 1,000-year ring. Years of sword training under Jinglu, cultivation of her top-grade meditation method, countless elixirs and treasures, and the awakening of his twin spirits, Black Abyss and White Flower, had boosted his constitution beyond the ordinary. He even had the White Flower's creative power to rely on. Absorbing a 1,000-year ring was within his capacity. Still, he hesitated. This would be his first ring. He wanted something more suitable. The Black Flame Demon Tiger was strong, but not top tier among spirit beasts. Its spirit power might not grant him the ability he truly wanted. He was about to signal Jinglu to drive the beast off when a sudden, piercing screech split the air, like a volcano erupting and metal snapping at once, shattering the tension. At that sound, the majestic Black Flame Demon Tiger visibly trembled and went pale with fear. It abandoned its pursuit of the fox, spun around, and fled like a hunted animal back the way it had come, as if something far greater was chasing it. The phantasmal spirit fox, once brave enough to hide behind Lu Jingming, now looked utterly frightened. Its legs went weak, and it collapsed to the ground, trembling pathetically. Jinglu's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. She laughed softly and said in a relaxed tone, "Looks like you're lucky." Chapter 13. Cinder Phoenix Bird. Although the call that had just sounded was terrifying, Lu Jingming felt no real fear. With Jinglu at his side, even if the legendary beast god Emperor Tian himself appeared, he figured he wouldn't be too frightened. Well, maybe a little, mainly worried about being caught in the crossfire and losing his life. As the call drew nearer, the air itself seemed to catch fire and the temperature spiked. Lush green leaves withered and yellowed at a visible pace, as if their life had been sucked away. A massive bird spirit burst into view. This was no ordinary bird. Its wingspan measured several meters, its skeleton visible beneath a dark, lava-like carapace that flowed over its body. Black flames laced its wings, and crimson gold feathers shimmered with latent power. Each feather seemed charged with 1,000 storms. Its beak, forged like obsidian, glowed at the tip with a purplish-red destructive energy, as if a mere peck could rend space. Molten gold, vertical pupils burned like twin flames. 7 long tails trailed behind it like comets, their tips disintegrating into ash as they swept through the air, leaving singed traces and warping the atmosphere itself. Lu Jingming had never seen such a creature, and nothing like it had been mentioned in the original work. He inwardly chided how limited the original story's catalog of spirit beasts had been. Since entering the Stardew Great Forest, he had already encountered 2 species he'd never heard of. From its appearance and the raw aura it exuded, This bird was clearly a top-tier bloodline. No wonder it had driven the thousand-year black flame demonic tiger to such a sorry state. After a careful sense, he confirmed it. The bird was indeed a thousand-year spirit beast. Its aura was astonishing, but not dramatically stronger than the black flame demonic tigers, which meant that, while their ages were similar, their actual combat value could be worlds apart. Spirit beast strength depended not only on age, but also on species and bloodline potency. Snake types couldn't be compared to dragon types, for example. On Douluo Continent, one could estimate a spirit beast's age by sensing its spirit power fluctuations, though that usually gave only a rough range. A few special beasts could conceal their power. From the bird's vibrations, its cultivation age could be placed roughly between 1 and 3,000 years. Further refinement required consideration of physical traits. 1,500 years. Cinder Phoenix bird. Phoenix bloodline. Attributes: destruction and fire. Jinglu's voice was calm and distant. Frost seeped from her hand, and a long sword, ice-cold and eerie, materialized in her grip. The Cinder Phoenix bird gave a sharp cry. Sensing Jinglu's threat, it unfurled its black flame wings, and thousands of its feathers transformed into a rain of blazing quills that fell like meteors. The sky filled with fire. The heat alone threatened to scorch everything. Jinglu's expression did not change. She flicked the long sword, and an ice-blue sword chi lanced out like lightning, freezing the air into a translucent barrier wherever it passed. The fiery feathers solidified on contact with that icy power and shattered into blocks of ice, raining down with crisp, cracking sounds. When its aerial assault failed, the Cinder Phoenix bird did not flee. Instead, it lunged, reckless and fierce. Its beak condensed into a concentrated column of destructive black flame. With a violent flap, it became an arrow loosed from a bow, cutting through the void and leaving a cold, black trail as if tearing the fabric of space. Jinglu moved like someone taking a stroll. She shifted a step and, with perfect timing, tapped the bird with the flat of her ice sword. The motion looked casual, even slight, but the force behind it was enormous. The Cinder Phoenix bird suddenly became a high-speed projectile and slammed into a massive tree with a bone-jarring thunk, sinking deep into the trunk. The surrounding trunks trembled from the impact. "Go! Its destruction attribute will suit you well," Jinglu said, sheathing her sword as if the whole encounter had been nothing more than light practice. Lu Jingming nodded, a trace of longing in his eyes. He wondered when he would be able to move like Jinglu, composed, graceful, and devastatingly effective with even the most understated gesture. This Cinder Phoenix bird was a Phoenix bloodline variant, only 1,500 years in age, but possessing overwhelmingly destructive power. Its true combat strength rivaled many beasts over 5,000 years old, placing it among the top-tier spirit beasts. For reference, beasts above 5,000 years often matched human spirit ancestors in power, while those around 1,000 years were closer to spirit elders. Chapter 14. Yan Xiaozhe and Ma Xiaotao. With over 1,000 years of cultivation, the blazing ember bird, capable of matching spirit beasts with more than 5,000 years, would be regarded in the human world as a genius that could fight far above its apparent level. Of course, comparisons between humans and spirit beasts are only approximations. True strength is decided in battle. On Lu Jingming's right hand, a dense black mist surged like a tide, and within it a pitch-black spear slowly formed. The moment the spear materialized, a suppressive aura radiated from it. Without hesitation, Lu Jingming thrust the black spear at the blazing ember bird, which had already lost the ability to resist. His movement was clean and decisive, without the slightest wavering. "Stop!" Just as the spear was about to pierce the blazing ember bird, a loud, bell-like voice thundered. Lu Jingming acted as if he hadn't heard. His hand did not stop. The black spear, charged with an indomitable aura, struck the bird's core without obstruction. As it entered, the spear tip shimmered with strange black motes of light. Those motes, as if alive, spread rapidly across the hard shell protecting the bird's core. In an instant, that seemingly indestructible carapace decomposed like fragile tofu. The process was eerily quiet, but it revealed a chilling power. Only after a brilliant purple spirit ring drifted slowly out of the blazing ember bird's body did Lu Jingming leisurely turn his head toward the source of the voice. A flash of dazzling golden light, like lightning, and a middle-aged man in a pristine white robe and a red-haired girl with a playful bun appeared before them. The man carried an extraordinary bearing, calm, reserved, while the girl radiated vitality, her large eyes bright and now wide with anger. Seeing the dead, blazing ember bird, the middle-aged man's brows knit tightly. Displeasure and regret flitted across his face. The red-haired girl's disbelief was even more obvious. She thrust her hands on her hips and, in a spoiled, petulant tone, demanded loudly, "Didn't I tell you to stop? Why did you still kill it?" Lu Jingming glanced at them without warmth, a trace of disdain and cold in his eyes. His tone was flat but resolute. "You said stop, so I should stop? Why would I listen to you? Who do you think you are?" "You!" The red-haired girl was so furious at Lu Jingming's merciless reply, she was momentarily speechless. She pointed at him, mouthing words but unable to find the right comeback. She hadn't expected this little brat, barely 6 years old it seemed, to be so defiant and domineering, to show her such contempt. This was a millennium spirit beast. How old are you? You killed it and couldn't even absorb its spirit ring. That's a complete waste. Her small chest heaved with anger. Her temper flared like a torch. "Whether it's a waste or not is my business. What does it have to do with you?" Lu Jingming shot back. His gaze flicked subtly to the white-robed man who had remained silent. In that instant, he noticed Jingliu's attention also lingered on the man. From his knowledge of Jingliu, that meant the white-robed man was no ordinary visitor. "Heh, look at my temper! You hateful little brat. Today this grandma will teach you a lesson." The red-haired girl, burning with rage, literally wrapped herself in flames and lunged at Lu Jingming as if she truly intended to beat him up. "Xiao Tao, do not be rude." At that tense moment, the white-robed man finally spoke, his voice calm and authoritative. He promptly restrained the impulsive girl, then turned to Jingliu with a humble smile and cupped his hands in greeting. "I am Yan Xiaozhe of Shrek Academy's Spirit Department. May I ask your name, Your Excellency?" Hearing the introduction, Lu Jingming raised an eyebrow, surprise flickering in his eyes. He had not expected such a coincidence. This was the celebrated Spirit Department Dean of Shrek Academy, Yan Xiaozhe, the Ming Phoenix Douluo. After a moment's thought, Lu Jingming's gaze returned to the red-haired girl. Given the timeline and ages, he was roughly the same age as Beibei and Shu Sanqi, and Ma Xiaotao should be about 5 years older. The girl looked to be around 12. Yan Xiaozhe's affectionate calling of her Xiaotao sealed the conclusion. This fiery-tempered girl must be Ma Hongjun's descendant, the notorious Ma Xiaotao. Jingliu. Jingliu's tone was as flat as ever, just that single name in reply to Yan Xiaozhe. Yan Xiaozhe's mouth twitched. He had introduced himself, revealed his Shrek Academy affiliation, and expected some show of respect. Yet the other party had only offered an unfamiliar name. It left him a bit stunned and faintly dissatisfied. He forced the feeling down. He could not gauge Jingliu's depths. This was not Shrek Academy's territory, but the dangerous Stardew Great Forest. If he accidentally provoked a powerful stranger, he would be worried, especially for Ma Xiaotao's safety. As a teacher, he had to protect his student at all costs. "Your Excellency," Yan Xiaozhe continued, trying to keep his tone as calm as possible, "we tracked this blazing ember bird for a long time. As you know, it is a millennium spirit beast. Given this young friend's age, it's not suitable for him to absorb its spirit ring. Isn't such an action rather inappropriate?" Normally, if anyone else had shown such disregard for Shrek Academy, Yan Xiaozhe would have at least administered a small punishment to uphold the Academy's dignity. But before Jingliu, his instincts urged extreme caution. Chapter 15. Princess Juju. Lu Jingming fell silent. True powerhouses deserved respect. Yan Xiaozhe was a super Douluo at level 95, undeniably among the strongest on the Douluo Continent. The way even the hot-tempered Ma Xiaotao had immediately restrained herself, only kicking at the stones underfoot and no longer shouting, showed how imposing Yan Xiaozhe's presence was. Ma Xiaotao could at most glare fiercely at Lu Jingming to vent her displeasure. Quick-tempered though she wasn't foolish. From her teacher's attitude, she sensed Jingliu must be an extraordinary figure, someone worthy of such solemn treatment. There was no place for her to intervene. The rules for hunting spirit beasts have always been first come, first served. Whoever kills the spirit beast owns it. If anyone objects, Let strength decide. Jingliu's voice was cool and her words blunt. The meaning was clear. Regardless of who first sighted the blazing phoenix, they were the ones who finished it. If anyone had a problem, let them fight for it. Yan Xiao's cheek twitched. He hadn't expected Jingliu to be so unyielding and to show no respect for Shrek Academy. Now that the blazing phoenix was dead, he had hoped not to make a fuss. If Jingliu had softened, offered compensation, or apologized, the matter could have been dropped. But Jingliu's tough stance left him in a bind. If he backed down now, it wouldn't only be a personal loss of face, it would damage Shrek Academy's prestige. The conflict looked like it might have to be settled with force. Good, very good. If your excellency insists, then let our fists speak. Yan Xiaozhe laughed angrily. No sooner had he finished when a clear phoenix-like cry split the air. A radiant apparition of a light phoenix rose behind him, and a tide of spirit power swept outward. The glow drove away the forest gloom, lighting the area as bright as day. At almost the same moment, a clear sword cry rang out. A biting sword intent, capable of searing through all things, pierced the sky. The air itself seemed to harden. Temperatures plunged and cold qi poured through the clearing. Within moments, feather-light snow began to fall. Snow in June. Under Jingliu's oppressive sword intent, Yan Xiao's powerful aura was instantly suppressed. Ma Xiaotao took an involuntary step back. In a daze, she imagined a longsword wreathed in cold qi, cleaving stars, releasing moon-like frost that froze everything. Strange as it was, under that biting cold, the burning pain of the demonic fire that had tormented her for years eased. The misery that had made her furious at Lu Jingming drained away, leaving her unusually calm. Ultimate ice! Yan Xiaozhe uttered the words slowly, his eyes a mix of apprehension and surprise. He had spent years trying to rid Ma Xiaotao of that demonic fire. He'd sought out spirit masters with the ultimate ice attribute and tried countless methods, always returning empty-handed. He and Ma Xiaotao had nearly despaired. He had never expected that hunting a spirit ring would lead them to a powerhouse with the ultimate ice attribute. Surprise was quickly replaced by a headache. If he'd known Jingliu possessed ultimate ice, he would never have tangled with her over a 1,000-year spirit beast. Now he was truly trapped. If they fought and offended her completely, how could he later shamelessly ask for help to eliminate Ma Xiaotao's fire? And from the clash of auras he just felt, Jingliu was likely beyond his reach. Still, he was reluctant to capitulate. Shrek Academy's reputation, as well as his own standing as dean of the spirit department, were at stake. After struggling inwardly, he turned to Ma Xiaotao, whom he cherished like a daughter, and forced himself to let go of his pride. Both of you, please, stop. Let's talk this through. At that moment, a clear, melodious female voice, like an Oriel's song, rang out. Jingliu and Yan Xiaozhe simultaneously drew back their released auras. Yan Xiaozhe breathed a secret sigh of relief and looked toward the newcomer with gratitude warming his features. A golden-haired young woman in a magnificent gilded dress approached with light, graceful steps. Every movement radiated innate nobility. Several people followed her, each possessing extraordinary auras, yet they all deferred to the golden-haired woman, treating her with obvious respect. Among them was an elderly, white-haired woman with a kindly face but a powerful spirit presence, the same person who had subtly shielded the golden-haired woman from the shock of Jingliu and Yan Xiaozhe's aura clash. Senior Jingliu, Dean Yan, the golden-haired woman said with a gentle smile, her voice soft and pleasant. It's only a 1,000-year spirit beast. There's no need to make such a fuss. If anyone has an issue, we can talk it out calmly. Lu Jingming couldn't help but be surprised. He glanced again at the golden-haired young woman, curious and attentive. Chapter 16, Letting Sleeping Dogs Lie. Lu Jingming had not expected this seemingly unfamiliar woman to know Jingliu. He watched her for a moment, puzzled, and the golden-haired girl noticed his gaze. She turned slightly, met his eyes, and a faint, friendly smile crossed her face. "You must be Lu Jingming," she said softly. "City Lord of Sea Abyss City and the future Earl of Sea Abyss, right? In that case, we can count ourselves as acquaintances." Lu Jingming frowned. He rarely showed his emotions and usually kept a low profile, but since this woman knew Jingliu and knew his identity, she was almost certainly connected to the Star Luo Empire and likely someone of status. "Who are you?" he asked. My name is Shujuju. You've probably heard of me, the golden-haired girl replied, her lips curving like a warm spring sun. Then, seeing his reaction, she added with a smile, My apologies, Your Highness. Lu Jingming reacted at once, bowing respectfully. Outwardly, he was a citizen of the Star Luo Empire, and the imperial family was his formal superior. Even if he did not privately revere them, he understood how to behave. Shujuju covered her mouth and chuckled softly at his formality. She found the young city lord, already so accomplished at his age, amusing. Nearby, Ma Xiaotao glanced at Lu Jingming with a look of disdain. Where had his arrogant attitude gone, she wondered. Why bow to a princess? Thinking back on his earlier rudeness to her and seeing him now deferential to Shu, she felt a sour knot in her chest. So this is Senior Xingyun and Her Highness, Yan Xiaozhe said with a faint smile. If Shuju hadn't stepped in when she did, he would have had to swallow his pride and back down before Jinglu. For the spirit department head of Shrek Academy, that prospect was humiliating. No, no, the elder, with Shu, quickly protested, bowing humbly. Although I'm older, my strength doesn't compare to head Yan. In the Douluo Continent, strength often determines rank and respect among spirit masters. The elder's spirit rank was 93, while Yan Xiaozhe stood at 95, 2 full ranks higher, so she could not accept the title of senior from him. Yan Xiaozhe merely smiled and let it go. His earlier address had been an attempt to show goodwill. Shujuju, born into the imperial family and trained to read nuance, understood the subtext. She cast an appraising look at Jinglu, trying to gauge her strength more precisely. Shu had learned of Jinglu and Lu Jingming because her brother in the imperial family often put her on official business to train her political skills. While reviewing documents, she had come across mention of the recent change of city lord in Sea Abyss City. The Star Luo Empire was vast and full of experts, but titled Douluo were rare, only a dozen or so across the whole empire. A change of city lord in a major city was naturally an event that attracted imperial attention. In the course of investigating, the family had realized Jinglu was very likely an extraordinarily powerful titled Douluo. That revelation made Jinglu an object of intense interest in the imperial court, and it explained how Lu Jingming had been able to take the city lord position so young. Whoever Jinglu was allied with could become a strategic asset the empire wanted to win over. In a world where strength decided power and survival, one more titled Douluo was priceless. Even if Jinglu came from the rival Sun Moon Empire, Star Luo would still look for opportunities to bring her into their orbit. From Yan Xiaozhe's demeanor, Shu also guessed he had been at a disadvantage in the earlier standoff. Shrek Academy was proud and powerful. If not for the timely intervention, Yan would not have been so amiable. Shu had recognized Jinglu instantly. Not only was her appearance distinctive, but the imperial family kept visual records on spirit tool crystals of many prominent figures to avoid accidental offense. Realizing a potentially critical test, titled Douluo stood before Shrek's own titled Douluo. Shu stepped forward to mediate. A public clash between either side and the imperial family would gain nobody anything. If she could resolve it, she would gain favor and political capital for both herself and the court. Shu's intervention gave Yan a graceful way to step back. He bowed and apologized, his expression sincere. Partly it was because of Jinglu's display of power, but there was another reason Yan had chosen to yield. He and Ma Xiaotao had a favor to ask of Jinglu, and they needed to approach her without making an enemy. Shu's calm handling and Yan's concession made the people standing with the imperial party look at Jinglu with newfound reverence. Unaware of the ulterior motive behind Yan's change of tone, they assumed Jinglu had utterly cowed the famous Phoenix Douluo. That misconception only increased their respect for Jinglu, leaving them entirely unacquainted with the delicate negotiations and calculations that had just taken place beneath the surface. Chapter 17. The First Spirit Ring. Across the entire Star Luo Empire, very few could command the kind of respect Jinglu received from the Phoenix Douluo, perhaps only the imperial family's high priest. Jinglu gave a slight nod and replied calmly, "It's fine." Shrek Academy was famed as the premier academy on the continent. She was not afraid of them, but it was wiser to avoid unnecessary conflict. If things escalated, It would harm the stability and development of Sea Abyss City. Besides, judging from what had just happened, they hadn't suffered any losses. If you don't absorb it soon, the spirit ring will dissipate, Jinglu gently reminded Lu Jingming. After a spirit beast died, its spirit ring would slowly fade within a limited time, eventually becoming pure spirit power and returning to the world. At Jinglu's words, Yan Xiaojie, Ma Xiaotao, Shujuju, and Star Cloud Douluo all stiffened, faces flashing with shock. They stared at Lu Jingming, scrutinizing him as if to confirm his age. His delicate face belonged to a 6 or 7-year-old child. Then their gazes turned to Jinglu, full of bafflement. Your Excellency, if I'm not mistaken, this young man just recently awakened his spirit. Yes? Isn't choosing a 1,000-year spirit ring as a first ring rather unwise? Yan Xiaojie tried to phrase his concern carefully. If it were anyone else, he wouldn't have cared. If someone overreached and failed, it wasn't his problem. But he wanted to curry favor with Jinglu, so he offered the reminder. Yes, Senior Jinglu, the first spirit ring is crucial. One should exercise caution, Shujuju added. She knew Jinglu's strength and experience made such a basic mistake unlikely, but a respectful comment would only improve her standing. Jinglu remained calm. He can bear it. Her tone conveyed no surprise and no intention to hide anything. Spirit rings were difficult to conceal unless one had an extremely unusual spirit ability. That Lu Jingming intended to absorb a 1,000-year spirit ring as his first could not be hidden, nor did it need to be. Lu Jingming was even more straightforward. Without a word, he released his first spirit, Black Abyss. A dark, long spear manifested, emitting black motes of light and an extremely profound aura. He sat cross-legged beside the carcass of the blazing phoenix bird, closed his eyes, and began to circulate his spirit power, concentrating fully on drawing in the purple spirit ring that hovered above the corpse. That's all for me. I'll take my leave, Yan Xiaojie said. I still need to find a new third spirit ring for my disciple. He was sensible enough to know there was no point lingering. An awkward incident had just occurred, and Lu Jingming was in the process of absorbing his ring. Staying would be inappropriate. He resolved to return to Shrek Academy, investigate Jinglu's background thoroughly, prepare a suitable gift, and then pay a formal visit. He believed that approach would raise the odds of securing Jinglu's help for Ma Xiaotao. Since Ma Xiaotao had just advanced to Spirit Elder and her evil fire had not yet run out of control, there was time to plan. Yan Xiaojie nodded to Shu Juju and the others, gathered Ma Xiaotao, and left. Ma Xiaotao trailed obediently, but kept glancing back at Lu Jingming, who was absorbed in refining his spirit ring, undisguised surprise still in her eyes. She had never seen nor heard of a spirit master taking a 1,000-year spirit ring as a first spirit ring, not even among the inner court geniuses of Shrek Academy. And Jinglu's confident permission, given her formidable reputation, made the prospect of success seem almost certain. Senior Jinglu, may we stay? Shujuju asked earnestly. A first spirit ring that's a 1,000-year ring is unprecedented on the Douluo Continent. I simply can't suppress my curiosity. Jinglu gave a concise, you may. As a princess of the Star Luo Empire, and with Lu Jingming being a noble granted by the Empire, Shujuju's presence could only benefit his future. Moreover, with Jinglu watching, Shu and the others wouldn't dare any foul play. Shujuju tilted her head and subtly signaled the guards behind her. The disciplined guards immediately fell back and kept their distance from Lu Jingming so as not to disturb him. Shu spotted a relatively clean stone, glided over, flicked her hand, and sent out a soft thread of spirit power that swept away the dust. She sat gracefully on the stone, cupping her chin in her hands, her sapphire blue eyes fixed unblinking on Lu Jingming as he refined his ring. Her expression was an open, intense curiosity. Lu Jingming, meanwhile, endured the onslaught of powerful, violent spirit power. It crashed against his meridians like surging tides, tearing at him from inside. Hot, destructive spirit energy merged continuously into his body, waiting to be absorbed and refined. At a certain point, he felt an invisible bottleneck, something holding his spirit power back, forcefully broken by that violent energy. The moment the level 10 spirit power bottleneck shattered, Lu Jingming felt as if he were in an enormous sea of power. He felt omnipotent. Chapter 18, The Familiar Princess. A black mist, formed of countless ebony particles, surged from Lu Jingming's body and instantly enveloped him. It spread wildly. Wherever it touched, flowers and plants wilted, trees, rocks, and soil began to rot, as if everything in the forest had suddenly become fragile. The star Douluo, who had been shadowing Shujuju like a guardian, stiffened at the sudden eruption of power. Instinctively protective, she flashed forward to put herself between Shujuju and the mist. "Your Highness, be careful. Don't touch that black mist," she warned, her face grave. Shujuju's eyes flickered with surprise, but her expression remained calm, unruffled. She shook her head slightly. "Grandma Mani, it's all right." Sure enough, the black mist spread only a short distance before stopping, as if held back by an invisible force. Then, as if drawn by a hand, it slowly contracted toward Lu Jingming. The mist dissipated and his figure cleared. He looked completely transformed. White hair, red eyes, a little taller, radiating a cold, forbidding aura. In his hand he held a dark, long spear taller than himself, black light swirling around its shaft. A gleaming purple spirit ring hovered and shone magnificently around it, dazzling to behold. Shujuju blinked, momentarily stunned by the sight. Though still young, Lu Jingming's delicate features and unique bearing already hinted at the charisma of a beautiful youth. It was easy to imagine how he might captivate people as he grew, assuming he didn't grow out of it, like a certain conqueror who had once been a stunning youth and later turned into a burly man with a full beard. Lu Jingming wore a satisfied expression. He had just absorbed his first spirit ring and unlocked his first spirit ability. He lowered the black abyss and admitted to himself that the blazing phoenix was indeed a powerful spirit beast. Its spirit ability fit him well. For a 6-year-old, absorbing a 1,000-year spirit ring as his first had been a heavy burden on his body. During the process, though, the white flower spirit had played a crucial role. Whenever his meridians were torn by the brutal spirit power, the creative force released by the white flower spirit would immediately mend him. Without that restorative power, taking a 1,000-year level spirit ring first would have been far more dangerous. The whole ordeal had been intense, but not unexpected. The Black Tower knew his physical condition intimately. If it had judged him capable of absorbing a 1,000-year ring, there would be no real danger. Lu Jingming trusted the companions he'd summoned like family. Absolute trust. Without that, how could he have gone on? When Lu Jingming opened his eyes and saw the princess staring at him with her clear blue gaze, he was taken aback. "Your Highness, why are you?" He hadn't expected Shujuju to still be here. She rose gracefully, smoothing her golden gown with a composed, natural motion, a charming smile on her face. "I was just curious," she said. "After all, you've set a precedent across the Douluo Continent. You don't mind, do you?" Lu Jingming hurriedly waved his hand, humble. "Your Highness flatters me. The Douluo Continent is vast, full of hidden talents and rising geniuses. I was simply fortunate. My physique is fortunate, which is why I managed a 1,000-year spirit ring. Compared to the true powers of the world, this is nothing." Shujuju rolled her eyes playfully. "You little freak. At such a young age, why do you have no youthful arrogance at all?" Lu Jingming only gave a small smile and didn't argue. Of course he felt pride. After all, as a transmigrator who knew the plot and carried a powerful golden finger, some arrogance was inevitable. But his previous life's reserved nature kept that arrogance hidden. And besides, he didn't think a 1,000-year first ring was worth boasting about. The world's luck child had taken a 1,000,000-year ring as a first. Now that was something to be shocked by. "You came to the Stardew Great Forest to find a spirit ring too, I assume?" Lu Jingming changed the subject. "Will this delay you?" Shujuju waved him off, smiling. "I don't need a first ring miracle like you. You little freak. I only need a 1,000-year third spirit ring. Given my situation, it won't take long to find one. You aren't trying to send me away, are you?" "Of course not," Lu Jingming protested quickly, sincere. "As a subject of the Empire, how could I show your Highness any disrespect?" "You're outwardly polite to me," Shujuju said, narrowing her eyes teasingly. "But in your heart, you don't really take me, this princess, seriously, do you?" Her direct words silenced him. He'd tried to conceal his true feelings well, and was secretly surprised by how keen her intuition was. She had been flattered and spoiled long enough to spot insincerity immediately. "Never mind," she said lightly, a hint of mischief in her voice. I'm a few years older than you, so you don't need to call me Your Highness anymore. Just call me sister. Lu Jingming was startled. He hadn't expected the princess to be so familiar. Chapter 19. Creation and Destruction. If it had been anyone else, Shujuju wouldn't have bothered trying to get close. But Lu Jingming's talent was obvious to everyone, and he had a powerful backer in Jinglu. He was also the lord of Sea Abyss City in the Star Luo Empire. From every angle, he was someone worth cultivating a relationship with. If Lu Jingming had remained aloof and courteous, she might have hesitated. But if the two of them could become friends, it would be ideal. Since that's the case, then, Sister Juju. Lu Jingming didn't put on airs. He used the term naturally. He understood why Shujuju was so warm. She saw his potential and the value of Jinglu's support. That was reality. Without value, one wouldn't be allowed such familiarity, let alone be called a princess's sister. Shujuju prized his talent and Jinglu's strength. Lu Jingming prized her noble status and the advantages she could bring. It was mutually beneficial, practically a two-way street. Under the stunned gazes of the guards, the two who had only just met were already as familiar as siblings raised together. Shujuju called him Brother Jingming with obvious fondness, and Lu Jingming returned Sister Juju smoothly and warmly. Jinglu watched silently from the side. Observing Lu Jingming's unorthodox, even slick manner now, her thoughts drifted, and she pictured another of her disciples, Star Cloud Duo Man Yi, studying him with interest. After a moment, Man Yi nodded in satisfaction. In her view, Lu Jingming, by identity as Lord of Sea Abyss City, by his titled Douluo backing, and by his astonishing talent, was more than qualified to win Shujuju's friendship. As the Star Luo princess, Shujuju needed to befriend promising nobles. It bolstered the royal family's influence across the empire. There was another layer to Man Yi's thoughts. Having raised Shujuju, she had watched the princess's curious nature form many times before. Curiosity often bred deeper feelings, and the Star Luo family was small. There was only a princess and no princes. Eventually, Shujuju would marry. Finding an excellent match early on might not be a bad thing in the long term. Lu Jingming had no idea of these tangled calculations. He noticed Man Yi watching and felt slightly puzzled, turning to meet her gaze. Man Yi offered a kind, amicable smile, though Lu Jingming always found her look strangely penetrating, as if carrying some inscrutable meaning. After a pleasant exchange, Lu Jingming and Shujuju agreed he would visit Star Luo City and his newly recognized convenient sister when he had time. Then Lu Jingming and Jinglu took their leave and headed back. Shujuju still needed to continue searching for a suitable third spirit ring in the Star Do Great Forest. Lu Jingming had no intention of staying. Though he'd been fortunate to secure a ring quickly, he'd been away long enough to miss Sea Abyss City and the people waiting there. Home's comforts appealed more than roughing it in the forest. As they prepared to depart the Star Do Great Forest, Jinglu glanced back once, her gaze lingering toward the forest's core. In the mysterious forbidden depths, the shimmering lake of life rippled faintly. By the water, a middle-aged man in black, his long hair streaked with a few golden threads, showed a flash of surprise. He quickly composed himself, bowed deeply, and lowered his voice. "My lord, you are awake." A faint response came from the void realm, one syllable that carried supreme presence. The middle-aged man became even more reverent, bending lower. To anyone who knew him, the contrast would be startling. This devout, deferential figure was Di Tian, the dominator of the Star Do Great Forest on the surface. The beast god ranked first among the top 10 vicious beasts of the Douluo Continent. A pair of dragon eyes, the color of deep purple amethyst, opened slowly within the void realm. Instantly, the elemental forces of the world seemed to boil, as if greeting the arrival of an elemental dominator. Creation and destruction? Strange. In those purple eyes there was a flicker of doubt, and the gaze drifted far away. After a moment, the eyes closed again, and a faint whisper dissipated into the quiet. When Ditian heard the words, his expression changed profoundly. His heart churned like a stormy sea. Countless questions rose in him. The two words, creation and destruction, struck a chord so deep they flooded his thoughts. He had once been a dragon god guard, and had been personally taught a divine skill by the dragon god Claw. He knew better than most that the dragon god's supreme divinity was woven from the twin powers of creation and destruction. The lord he served now, the Silver Dragon King, was born from the godhead of creation, half of the dragon god itself. Because of that, when the Silver Dragon King spoke the words, creation and destruction, Ditian's excitement verged on uncontrollable. But now his heart filled with questions. What had happened to make his lord speak of those two forces? In the hush that followed, with the lake of life settling back into stillness, Ditian forced himself to suppress his curiosity. He stood quietly and made no move, pretending nothing had occurred, though inside his mind the ocean continued to rage. Chapter 20. The Jinwei Guards Sea Abyss City, once a relatively undeveloped coastal town in the Star Luo Empire, had been transformed beyond recognition. New, oddly shaped buildings rose along its streets, designs that blended novel architectural ideas with spirit tool technology, giving the city a distinctive look. A host of practical spirit tools quietly appeared, like stars scattered through every neighborhood, bringing conveniences its people had never seen. Spirit lampposts cast a steady, soft light along the avenues, making even the darkest nights feel like day. Newly opened spirit tool shops bustled with customers, their windows piled high with affordable daily-use devices, self-propelled bicycles that made travel effortless, spirit tool air conditioners that kept homes warm in winter, automatic spirit tool washing machines that freed people from menial chores. For Sea Abyss's residents, these things felt miraculous and new. In the Sun Moon Empire, such tools had long been commonplace, but in the Star Luo Empire, and in similar states like Tianhun and Dueling, traditional spirit masters had looked down on spirit tools as unorthodox. Most people in the old Douluo Three Kingdoms had only heard of these devices' wonders. Few had ever seen them. Sea Abyss City embraced them eagerly. With energetic promotion by the city lord's mansion, spirit tools quickly became pervasive. Some conservative families and sects scoffed and refused to use them, clinging to older traditions. But Changli's firm policies made open opposition unwise. In Sea Abyss City, the decrees from the city lord's mansion carried absolute weight. Who would dare defy them unless they first confirmed the consent of the razor-sharp sword in Jingliu's hand? The older generation's ingrained prejudices limited their vision, but the young were different. Curious, open-minded, quick to adopt new things. Under pressure from the city lord's mansion, the elders could only turn a blind eye while the youth enjoyed the conveniences of spirit tool life. In the 8 years since Lu Jingming became city lord, the change had been dramatic. The city's area expanded several times over. 100-meter buildings rose. New tram tracks crisscrossed the streets, and spirit tool trams shuttled citizens to and fro. The constant improvements acted like a magnet, drawing merchants and entire spirit master families to relocate and settle in Sea Abyss City. Much of the city's booming prosperity traced to a fleet of spirit tool warships. These advanced vessels sailed the turbulent ocean with ease, capturing valuable sea spirit beasts and returning laden with seafood. The bounty they brought home not only fed the populace, but created vast economic value, steadily building the city's wealth. Where sea spirit beasts had once been a terror, their incursions were now treated more like a carnival. Each raid meant an influx of spirit beast materials and treasure for the market. Key to maintaining this prosperity and order was the city lord's personal guard, the Jinwei Guards. 500 strong, every member a spirit master, selected and trained through strict screening, the Jinwei Guards wore state-of-the-art spirit tool armor and carried a variety of powerful spirit tools. Whether quelling rampaging sea spirit beasts or bringing lawless spirit masters to justice, few could slip past them. Though established only 2 years earlier, the Jinwei Guards had already become renowned in Sea Abyss City. They had suppressed countless unruly spirit masters, and once, astonishingly, 3 Jinwei members had subdued a spirit king, a feat that underscored the unit's quality. Spirit kings were rare on the Douluo Continent. In many smaller cities, a spirit king's power could qualify them to serve as city lord. That 3 Jinwei guardsmen, 3 of the unit's 5 commander-level powerhouses, could restrain one, testified to the guard's strength. Having 5 Spirit King-level commanders within a 2-year-old force was a remarkable achievement for a frontier city. The Jinwei Guard's internal ranks were strictly defined. Ordinary members were spirit grandmasters, squadron leaders spirit elders, battalion leaders spirit ancestors, and above them were the spirit king-level commanders. Overseeing all was the Grand Commander, Snow Moon Douluo Jingling, the most powerful, openly known figure in Sea Abyss City. With such a disciplined and formidable force, the city's order was unrivaled in the Star Luo Empire. Outsiders dared not act recklessly within its walls. In the past 2 years, many forces had come covetous of Sea Abyss City's riches, spirit tool warships that braved the seas, novel spirit tools, and rare treasures harvested from the ocean. But no attempted raids or internal schemes had seriously shaken the city. While the Jinwei Guards could not yet match the legions of spirit masters from the great empires and were no rival to the spirit tool armies of the Sun Moon Empire, their presence, backed by Jingling and the city lord's will, kept Sea Abyss City safe and prosperous.